Welcome to Mr. Scholar, where history comes alive. Today, we dive into the epic story of one of the greatest empires in history, the Ottoman Empire. From a small Anatolian beylik to a vast empire spanning 3 continents, the Ottomans shaped the world for over 600 years. Their rise was marked by military conquests, brilliant leaders, and cultural achievements, while their decline was a slow and dramatic fall, ending in the creation of modern Turkey. How did they build such a powerful empire? What led to their downfall? Stay with us as we unravel the fascinating journey of the Ottoman Empire from its birth to its collapse. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to Mr. Scholar for more in-depth history videos. Now, let's explore the story of an empire that changed the course of history. The story of the Ottoman Empire begins in the late 13th century, a time of chaos and fragmentation in Anatolia. The once mighty Seljuk Sultanate of Rum had crumbled under Mongol invasions, leaving behind a patchwork of independent Turkish principalities known as beyliks. Among these was a small but ambitious state led by a chieftain named Osman, the man who would lay the foundation for one of the most powerful empires in history. Osman, later known as Osman I, was the son of Ertuğrul, a leader of the Kaya tribe, a branch of the Oghuz Turks. He inherited his father's small domain near the Byzantine frontier, a strategically crucial region where Christian and Muslim forces constantly clashed. Unlike his rivals, Osman was not just a warrior, but a visionary leader who saw an opportunity to expand his influence. By uniting Turkish warriors under his command and adopting the title of Bey, he laid the groundwork for a new dynasty, the Ottomans. The early Ottomans were Ghazis, warriors for Islam, who fought against the weakening Byzantine Empire and other rival Turkish states. Osman's forces, known for their discipline and mobility, began launching raids into Byzantine territory, capturing key towns and fortresses. His most significant victory came with the conquest of Yenişehir, which became the first major Ottoman stronghold. From this base, Osman and his successors continued their relentless expansion. Osman's son Orhan took the empire to new heights. He captured Bursa in 1326, a momentous victory that marked the transformation of the Ottomans from a small principality into a rising power. Bursa became the first Ottoman capital, where Orhan established administrative structures, coinage, and a standing army. Unlike many of his contemporaries, Orhan understood the value of governance and diplomacy. He recruited skilled administrators, encouraged trade, and promoted religious tolerance, attracting people from different backgrounds to his growing state. One of the key strategies that set the Ottomans apart was their use of the devshirme system, a unique method of recruiting talented individuals from Christian populations under their rule. These recruits, often young boys, were trained as elite soldiers known as janissaries, or appointed to high-ranking government positions. This system not only ensured loyalty to the Sultan, but also provided the empire with an effective and disciplined military force that would dominate battlefields for centuries. The Ottomans' rapid expansion brought them into direct conflict with the Byzantines and various Balkan states. Under the rule of Murad I, the Ottomans made their first significant incursions into Europe, capturing Adrianople, modern-day Edirne, in 1369 and making it their new capital. This marked the beginning of Ottoman dominance in the Balkans, a region that would remain under their rule for centuries. Murad I introduced another revolutionary military reform, the Timar system, which granted land to cavalrymen in exchange for military service. This created a self-sustaining military class that strengthened Ottoman power and ensured that the empire could maintain large armies without relying on mercenaries or feudal lords. The rise of the Ottomans was not without challenges. They faced fierce resistance from European coalitions, Mongol incursions, and internal power struggles. However, their ability to adapt, their effective governance, and their military innovations allowed them to overcome these obstacles. By the late 14th century, the Ottomans were no longer just another Turkish beylik. They were a formidable empire poised to change the course of history. With their relentless ambition and strategic brilliance, they would soon achieve one of the greatest conquests in history, the fall of Constantinople. In the spring of 1453, the world witnessed one of the most pivotal moments in history, the Conquest of Constantinople. For over 1,000 years, the city had stood as the heart of the Byzantine Empire, a fortress of Christianity and a bridge between Europe and Asia. It had withstood countless sieges, thanks to its massive triple-layered walls and strategic location. But this time, it faced an enemy unlike any before, an ambitious young sultan with an army determined to bring the city to its knees. Mehmed II, who would later be known as Mehmed the Conqueror, had ascended to the Ottoman throne at just 19 years old. Unlike his predecessors, he was obsessed with one goal: taking Constantinople. He understood that controlling the city was key to uniting his empire and asserting Ottoman dominance. While previous sultans had attempted to conquer it, none had succeeded. Mehmed, however, was different. He spent years preparing for this moment, gathering the most advanced military technology, experienced generals, and a well-trained army of over 80,000 soldiers. One of his greatest weapons was the basilica, a massive cannon designed by the Hungarian engineer Orban. This giant piece of artillery was capable of firing enormous stone balls, each weighing over half a ton. It was something the world had never seen before, and Mehmed knew it would be crucial in breaking through the city's legendary walls. On April 6, 1453, the siege began. The Ottomans surrounded the city by land and sea, cutting it off from reinforcements. The Byzantines, led by Emperor Constantine the Fifth, were vastly outnumbered, with only around 7,000 defenders. Despite this, they were determined to fight to the last man. For weeks, the Ottomans bombarded Constantinople's walls with their massive cannons. The ground shook as each blast tore into the ancient fortifications. But the city's defenders were resilient, repairing the damage each night and repelling Ottoman attacks with fiery Greek fire, boiling oil, and well-placed counterattacks. The fight was brutal, and it seemed as if the city might survive once again. But Mehmed had a plan. Seeing that the Byzantine navy was blocking the entrance to the Golden Horn, he did something extraordinary. He ordered his men to build a wooden road over the hills behind the city, greased it with animal fat, and dragged over 70 ships across land, bypassing the defensive chain blocking the harbor. When the Byzantines woke up the next morning, they were shocked to see the Ottoman fleet inside the Golden Horn. This bold move demoralized the defenders and tightened the Ottoman stranglehold on the city. Still, the siege dragged on for weeks. Every attack was met with fierce resistance, and Mehmed grew frustrated. But on the night of May 28, 1453, he prepared for a final all-out assault. His troops rested, his cannons fired continuously, and his commanders inspired their men with the promise of glory and riches. The Byzantines, exhausted and desperate, held a final religious ceremony in Hagia Sophia, praying for a miracle. Before dawn on May 29th, the final attack began. Wave after wave of Ottoman soldiers stormed the walls. The first attacks were repelled, but Mehmed sent in his elite janissaries, the empire's most feared warriors. Then, disaster struck for the Byzantines. One of the city's gates, the Kirka Porta, was accidentally left open. Ottoman soldiers poured in, and soon the city was overrun. Constantine V fought bravely in the streets, but was ultimately killed. By midday, the Ottoman flag flew over the city, and Mehmed rode triumphantly into Constantinople. He entered Hagia Sophia, declaring it a mosque, marking the beginning of a new era. The fall of Constantinople was more than just the end of the Byzantine Empire. It marked the rise of the Ottoman Empire as a global superpower. It also changed world history, pushing European nations to seek new trade routes, leading to the age of exploration. Mehmed II had achieved the impossible, cementing his place in history as one of the greatest conquerors of all time. The Ottoman Empire reached the height of its power in the 16th and early 17th centuries, a period known as its Golden Age. It was an era of territorial expansion, military dominance, economic prosperity, and cultural brilliance. At the center of this golden period stood one of history's greatest rulers, Suleiman the Magnificent. Under his leadership, the empire became the most powerful force in the world, stretching from Central Europe to the Middle East and North Africa. Suleiman ascended to the throne in 1520 at just 26 years old. Unlike many rulers who inherited vast empires, he was not content with maintaining what was already built. He had a vision of turning the Ottomans into a global superpower, and he wasted no time in achieving it. His military campaigns were relentless. In Europe, he led his armies to victory over Hungary at the Battle of Mohacs in 1526, marking the fall of one of the strongest Christian kingdoms of the time. 3 years later, he laid siege to Vienna, the gateway to Western Europe. Though the city withstood the attack, the message was clear. The Ottomans were now a dominant power, feared by all of Christendom. But it was not only on land that the Ottomans excelled. Their navy, led by legendary admirals like Barbarossa, dominated the Mediterranean. The Ottomans crushed European fleets, securing control over crucial trade routes and ensuring their supremacy at sea. The empire's influence extended far beyond its borders, striking fear into Spain, Portugal, and even reaching the shores of the Indian Ocean. Beyond military conquest, the golden age of the Ottoman Empire was marked by political and legal reforms. Suleiman was not just a warrior, he was also a brilliant statesman. He reorganized the empire's legal system, earning the title Kanuni, or the lawgiver. His laws provided justice for both Muslims and non-Muslims, ensuring a stable and efficient government. The empire's administration was a model of organization, with a structured bureaucracy and a highly skilled corps of officials who kept everything running smoothly. Economically, the Ottoman Empire thrived during this period. Situated at the crossroads of Europe, Asia, and Africa, it controlled the most important trade routes in the world. Goods from China, India, and Persia passed through Ottoman lands before reaching Europe. This created immense wealth, allowing cities like Istanbul, Cairo, and Baghdad to flourish as centers of commerce, learning, and culture. Markets overflowed with silk, spices, and precious metals, making the empire one of the richest in history. But perhaps the most enduring legacy of the Golden Age was its cultural and architectural achievements. Ottoman cities transformed into breathtaking masterpieces, with grand mosques, palaces, and public buildings that still stand today. The empire's chief architect, Mimar Sinan, designed some of the most stunning structures in history, including the Süleymaniye Mosque in Istanbul. Inspired by the grandeur of Hagia Sophia, Sinan's architectural innovations blended Islamic and Byzantine styles, creating an unmistakable Ottoman identity. Art, literature, and music also flourished. Poets wrote in Persian, Arabic, and Turkish, celebrating the empire's achievements and the glory of its sultans. Calligraphy and miniature painting reached new heights, while advancements in science, medicine, and engineering placed the Ottomans at the forefront of intellectual progress. At the heart of all this success was the empire's unique ability to govern a vast and diverse population. Muslims, Christians, and Jews coexisted under Ottoman rule, contributing to its economic and cultural prosperity. The millet system allowed religious communities to maintain their own traditions and legal systems, fostering stability in a multi-ethnic empire. But even at its peak, the seeds of decline were already being sown. Corruption, political intrigue, and power struggles at the imperial court began to weaken the system. As European powers advanced in technology and military tactics, the Ottomans found it harder to keep up. The Golden Age could not last forever, but its legacy endured, shaping the world in ways still visible today. The Ottoman Empire's Golden Age was a time of unmatched strength, artistic brilliance, and political stability. It was a period when the empire stood at the center of global affairs, influencing cultures, economies, and governments across 3 continents. Even centuries later, its impact can still be felt, a testament to the power and vision of the Ottoman sultans who built one of history's greatest empires. The decline of the Ottoman Empire did not happen overnight. It was a slow, gradual process that began in the late 16th century, even as the empire remained one of the world's most powerful forces. The early signs of decline emerged from within: political corruption, economic struggles, and military stagnation. At the same time, rising European powers were advancing rapidly, posing new challenges that the Ottomans struggled to overcome. One of the key factors in the empire's decline was the weakening of its leadership. The era of strong, visionary sultans like Suleiman the Magnificent gave way to rulers who were often inexperienced, easily manipulated, or uninterested in governance. The once meritocratic system that rewarded competence began to favor palace intrigue and nepotism. Sultans became isolated within the Topkapi Palace, influenced by advisors and courtiers who prioritized their own interests over the empire's well-being. The Janissary Corps, once the empire's elite fighting force, also became a major problem. These soldiers, originally recruited through the Devshirme system, had been the backbone of Ottoman military success. However, over time, they grew corrupt and resistant to change. They gained political influence, often overthrowing or assassinating sultans who tried to reform them. Their unwillingness to adopt new tactics left the Ottoman military increasingly outdated, especially as European armies modernized with advanced weaponry and training. Economic troubles further weakened the empire. For centuries, the Ottomans had thrived by controlling key trade routes between Europe, Asia, and Africa. But by the 17th century, European nations found alternative routes, bypassing Ottoman-controlled territories. The discovery of the Americas and direct sea trade with Asia reduced the empire's economic importance. At the same time, inflation caused by an influx of silver from the New World devalued Ottoman currency, leading to financial instability. Corruption within the bureaucracy made matters worse. Officials often purchased their positions rather than earning them through merit. This led to widespread bribery and inefficiency, as many administrators prioritized personal enrichment over effective governance. The tax system became increasingly oppressive, placing a heavy burden on peasants and leading to frequent revolts across the empire. Externally, the Ottomans began losing ground to European rivals. The once dominant empire suffered a major blow in 1571 at the Battle of Lepanto, where its navy was decisively defeated by a coalition of Christian powers. Though the Ottomans recovered, it marked the beginning of European military superiority. By the late 17th century, the empire's expansion had slowed and defeats became more common. The Battle of Vienna in 1683 was a turning point. An Ottoman siege of the Austrian capital failed, and the empire was forced into a long retreat from Central Europe. Despite these challenges, the Ottoman Empire remained a major power for centuries. However, the early signs of decline had set in, and without significant reforms, the empire would struggle to keep pace with the rapidly changing world. The seeds of decline had been planted, and over the next centuries, they would grow into a crisis that would eventually bring down one of history's greatest empires. By the late 17th century, the once mighty Ottoman Empire was beginning to show clear signs of long-term decline. While it remained one of the largest and most influential empires in the world, internal weaknesses and external pressures slowly eroded its power. Over the next 2 centuries, the empire would struggle to maintain control over its vast territories, earning it the infamous nickname, the Sick Man of Europe. The empire's decline was not caused by a single event, but rather a combination of military failures, economic struggles, administrative corruption, and rising nationalist movements. The once feared Ottoman military had fallen behind its European rivals, who had embraced new technologies and advanced warfare strategies. The traditional reliance on the Janissaries, once an elite force, had become a liability. These soldiers resisted reforms, often revolting against sultans who attempted to modernize the army. Their unchecked political influence made it nearly impossible for the empire to adapt to changing military realities. One of the most devastating blows came in 1699 with the Treaty of Karlowitz, which forced the Ottomans to cede significant territories in Hungary and the Balkans to the Habsburgs and other European powers. This marked the first major territorial loss in Ottoman history, signaling the beginning of a long retreat from Europe. As the empire's borders shrank, European rivals took advantage of its weakening grip. Russia, under leaders like Catherine the Great, launched aggressive campaigns, pushing southward into Ottoman lands. The empire's defeats in wars against Russia and Austria further eroded its prestige. Economically, the empire struggled to keep up with Europe's industrial revolution. While European nations embraced mechanized production and global trade networks, the Ottomans remained dependent on outdated agricultural economies. European manufactured goods flooded Ottoman markets, weakening local industries. The empire also became heavily reliant on foreign loans, sinking into debt that would later allow European powers to exert financial control over key Ottoman institutions. Corruption within the Ottoman administration only worsened the crisis. Government positions were often sold to the highest bidder rather than awarded based on merit. Many officials prioritized personal wealth over effective governance, leading to inefficient tax collection and widespread mismanagement. The once strong bureaucratic system had become a web of bribery and favoritism, making reform nearly impossible. By the 19th century, nationalism began to tear the empire apart from within. Inspired by European revolutions, various ethnic and religious groups within the empire sought independence. The Greek War of Independence in the 1820s was one of the first major uprisings, successfully breaking away from Ottoman rule with European support. This set a dangerous precedent as other Balkan nations followed suit. The empire, which had once prided itself on governing a diverse population, now faced constant rebellions and separatist movements. In response, the Ottomans attempted a series of modernization efforts known as the Tanzimat reforms between 1839 and 1876. These reforms aimed to modernize the military, improve administration, and grant equal rights to all citizens, regardless of religion. However, these changes faced strong opposition from conservative factions, and their implementation was inconsistent. While they brought some improvements, they were not enough to halt the empire's decline. The empire's dependence on European powers deepened in the late 19th century. The Ottoman government borrowed heavily from Western banks to fund its military and infrastructure projects. When it failed to repay its debts, European creditors took direct control over Ottoman finances. This economic stranglehold further weakened the empire's sovereignty, reducing it to a semi-colonial state in many aspects. The term "sick man of Europe" was first used in the mid-19th century, reflecting the empire's status as a weakening power overshadowed by the rising European nations. The Ottoman Empire, once feared and respected, was now seen as an empire in terminal decline, unable to defend itself against internal revolts or external invasions. The final blow to Ottoman stability came in the early 20th century. The empire's defeat in the Balkan Wars of 1912 to 1913 stripped it of nearly all its European territories. Then came World War I, where the Ottomans sided with Germany and the Central Powers, hoping to reclaim lost glory. However, their defeat in 1918 sealed the empire's fate. European powers dismantled its remaining lands, carving up the Middle East and leaving the once great empire on the brink of collapse. The long decline of the Ottoman Empire was a slow and painful process, filled with missed opportunities, failed reforms, and external pressures. Though it had once ruled over 3 continents, by the early 20th century, its days were numbered. The empire that had stood for over 600 years would soon come to an end, giving birth to a new era in the region, the rise of modern Turkey. The fall of the Ottoman Empire was the result of centuries of internal decline, external pressures, and failed reforms. By the early 20th century, the empire was struggling to survive, holding on to its remaining territories while facing growing nationalist movements, financial crises, and military defeats. The final blow came during World War I, when the Ottomans sided with Germany and the Central Powers, sealing their fate in one of history's most devastating conflicts. At the start of the 20th century, the empire had already lost most of its European territories. The Balkan Wars of 1912 to 1913 stripped it of nearly all its land in southeastern Europe, exposing its military weakness. At the same time, nationalist movements within the empire, particularly among Arabs, Armenians, and Kurds, were growing stronger, threatening to further divide Ottoman lands. The empire's economy was in ruins, burdened by debt and under European financial control. Attempts at modernization, such as the Tanzimat reforms, had failed to bring lasting stability. When World War I broke out in 1914, the Ottomans saw an opportunity to regain lost prestige. They joined the war on the side of Germany and Austria-Hungary, hoping that a Central Powers victory would allow them to reclaim lost territories. However, the war quickly turned disastrous. The Ottomans fought on multiple fronts, against the British in the Middle East, the Russians in the Caucasus, and the Allies in Gallipoli. While they achieved some victories, such as the defense of Gallipoli in 1915, the overall war effort drained the empire's already fragile resources. One of the most significant events during the war was the Arab Revolt of 1916 to 1918. Encouraged and supported by the British, Arab nationalists rose up against Ottoman rule, dealing a major blow to the empire. The British also captured key Ottoman territories, including Palestine, Syria, and Iraq. By the end of the war, the empire had lost almost all of its Arab lands. In 1918, the Ottomans surrendered to the Allied powers, and their fate was sealed. The Treaty of Sèvres in 1920 carved up the remaining Ottoman territories, placing much of the Middle East under British and French control. Greece and Italy occupied parts of Anatolia, while Armenia and Kurdish groups sought their own independent states. The empire was on the brink of complete disintegration. In the midst of this chaos, a new leader emerged, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk. A former Ottoman general, he led Turkish nationalist forces in a war against foreign occupation. By 1922, his forces had successfully expelled Greek and Allied troops from Anatolia, securing Turkish independence. That same year, the Ottoman Sultanate was officially abolished, marking the end of over 600 years of Ottoman rule. In 1923, the Republic of Turkey was established under Atatürk's leadership. The last Ottoman Sultan, Mehmed VI, was sent into exile, and the once mighty empire was no more. The fall of the Ottoman Empire marks the end of an era, but its legacy continues to shape the modern world, from the borders of the Middle East to the cultural and historical influences that still endure today. The Ottoman Empire may have fallen, but its legacy still shapes the world today. From stunning architectural wonders to legal systems, trade networks, and cultural influences, its impact is undeniable. The modern Middle East, Balkans, and Turkey all carry the marks of Ottoman rule. History remembers the Ottomans as warriors, builders, and rulers of a vast and diverse empire. If you enjoyed this deep dive into history, subscribe to Mr. Scholar for more fascinating stories of the past. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more incredible insights into the empires that shaped